Today I fucked up by taking a job at a brothel. So this happened a few months ago. I have told only a few people about it because it was so embarrassing. Anyways, female, early 20s, graduated university a while ago, and I was getting tired, and broke, waiting for my internship to start. So I started looking for a waitressing job to hold me down for a while until that happens. So I started browsing Facebook ads. I come across an ad for a cafe not too far from my place. I call the number and I start talking to the owner, who seemed super nice and decent, and he tells me to come in the next day, so I do. The cafe was actually a hookah place inside an old rental apartment compound. I was waiting outside until a girl let me in. In hindsight, the fact that the cafe was locked and not publicly accessible should have had me running out the door, but I'm naive and have no idea how brothels work, as I live in a strict Muslim country. I immediately notice that the cafe is divided into tiny rooms with doors. Again, a glaring red flag I didn't process at the time. So I went inside one with the owner and one of the girls that work there. They got me drinks and were very nice. They kept talking about the service, the pay, which for obvious reasons was a cut of each visitor you serve, the working hours. Now after the owner left, the girl insinuated that the visitors are lonely rich men who want to talk to someone, so it's more about how much you accompany them than your service skills. She followed that by saying that I don't need to do anything I don't want though. So I left, very confused as nothing explicitly screamed prostitution. Quote. In my head yet. I got a call from the nice owner later asking me if I decided to take the job, so I said yeah, okay, I'll start the next day. The next day the owner wasn't there, but the girl from last time was. I noticed everyone was relaxed, but I figured it was too early in the day. I also noticed everyone, the entire staff was women, and younger women at that, was very liberally dressed, which crossed my mind as a bit strange for a workplace. After talking a bit, the girl left to do something and some other girls I didn't know checked in. I decided to sit outside by the cashier register as nothing was happening so far, until the door across from me opened, and there was a guy and his cafe lady chaperone all in the open. I immediately went into the other room to get my shit and got the hell out of there. I later got a call from the owner who found out I stormed out and said, I had a feeling this job wasn't for you. Too long did not read. I took a job at a cafe only to find out it was an undercover brothel. I was like 20 and my girlfriend found me a job driving strippers around and holding money. Went for the interview and the guy was surprised my girlfriend found me the job. That's disgusting. Where? Sounds like you got out of there before you were coerced into doing something you didn't want to do. Lesson learned. Trust your instincts and get out of it. Doesn't feel right. Trust your instincts. The last time I ignored the blaring alarm bells in my head, I got mugged. They're there for a reason. I accidentally applied for an office job in a Scientology kirk and got stalked for over 3 months because I got halfway through the application form before realizing I had to change my phone number and email address. I also got sent a letter. Later, my friends didn't believe me how weird they are, so they went and applied for a job for a laugh. One of them got a personality test and the other one got an hour-long talk about Dianetics and a personality test. There was a guy and his cafe lady chaperone all in the open. What does this mean? Today I fucked up by spending my life thinking chocolate should burn. My partner and I were talking about how tastes change over the years. I mentioned that I was never a huge fan of chocolate anyway because I didn't like how it burns. She just looked at me. It took me a while to realize. Chocolate isn't meant to burn. So turns out I'm allergic. Now I can't eat my favorite donuts. I'm going to anyway. I'm just going to be mad about it. I thought it was meant to burn your throat. What else am I wrong about? Will I ever know? I've gone 22 years in a Swiss family absolutely guzzling chocolate at every opportunity my entire childhood, only recently deciding I would slow it down. I'm so lost. What do I do? I apologize for the rambling nature of this post. This has caused a lot of emotions. I need to call some people before my birthday to make sure I don't get the customary box of chocolates. Edit. Can confirm that enough Ben & Jerry's chocolate fudge brownie will hurt like hell after a while. Too long did not read. I've spent my life thinking chocolate is meant to give a burning sensation in the throat. Turns out I'm allergic. A Swiss that's allergic to chocolate? God is giving you a free trial of hell. When you said, burn, when I first saw the title, I thought you meant taking it to a flame and melting it. All 3 of my children, ages 20, 16, and 13, are allergic to chocolate. None of them will agree to stop eating it. Careful. Continual exposure can turn a mild allergy into a deadly one. I have oral allergy syndrome towards most to all fruits. I'm currently living in a tropical country. So many fruits, smiling face with tear. I totally understand the feeling. Tears of joy. I never liked a certain porridge I was fed by my Russian family because I didn't like how it made my throat tickle and itch. I never understood why anyone would enjoy putting themselves through that, and it didn't occur to me until later that maybe not everyone's throat ticked when they eat it. I'm still not 100% sure if kiwis are a spicy fruit for everyone. I just know that I don't enjoy their spiciness, but I don't know if I'm allergic or if that's part of the appeal. Same with passion fruit. Is it supposed to tickle my throat? Today I fucked up by discovering a migraine trigger the hard way. Obligatory, this was not today, but long ago in my past, but still part of my nightmares. Not safe for work as content includes the act of regurgitation over multiple paragraphs. Do not read if you are eating, you have been warned. And #X200B. When I was younger than 10 years old, I decided to consume without permission a bag of Doritos nacho chips. Back then, this was one of my favorite guilty pleasures, and when I saw the opportunity to snag the bag without being caught, I yanked it and dug in. There were two mistakes in this. First, the bag was family size, the kind of package that was the size of my small little torso and not personal fun size bag. Second, this is when I learned something about myself and my migraines. You see, I was still young and naive to how migraines worked, and how they could be triggered. I could not possibly understand how delicious, nacho cheese, preservative-coated food, could hurt me. For those who are in the know, you know how this choice of food became my second mistake. Without much delay of completing my guilty pleasure, I found myself in pain, a lot of pain. Debilitating pain. The kind that makes gravity feel 10 times stronger, pain. Unfortunately, this presented a major problem for my mother. My family had only one vehicle at this time, which she had to keep today to do errands for the house. To do this, she has to drop my dad off at his job and then pick him up later on. Naturally, of course, he works swing shift, 1 hour's drive away, and he is to be picked up at the dead of midnight. Obviously, she couldn't leave me alone as she needed to monitor my condition, and this being the era before internet and Uber, she did the only thing she could think of: strap me down into this 2.5-seat truck, which had shock absorbers that were 5 years past expired, and begin our journey to the city. Thankfully, my mom had the foresight to bring a large stainless steel bowl bigger than my head to hold in case the unfortunate happened. I assure you, once my mother began her drive over the Altamont Pass, I was already clutching that bowl tightly in my lap. My guts were twisted, my contents were swishing, and my mind was rolling. It was agony. The problem that I was experiencing was new. As much as I wanted to vomit, I couldn't bring myself to do it while in motion. Either paralyzed by fear of backsplash or physically prohibited from the action because I could not stay still enough to focus on my purge. For some of you out there, vomiting during a migraine can provide a degree of cathartic relief. I was desperate for this sweet release, but the bouncing 580 freeway kept me from my body's goal. What felt like forever, my mother finally brought us within sight of my father's job at Mother's Cookies in Oakland. As she maneuvered through the midnight streets, my stomach sensed that the moment of truth was approaching. A paste of thick mass was starting to push its way up as if it was being rolled out of my throat like toothpaste out of its tube. I courageously held back, forcing it back down as my mother still had to pull a few more maneuvers down the street. I couldn't risk scaring her into a parked car, or have a bounce throw off my aim and paint the fabric seats with the sins of my past. Silently, I held on. Stoic through the journey, I had a flash thought: if my mother thought I was still in serious pain, soon, the truth would come. In fact, it all came. The moment the parking brake engaged and the truck jerked to a stop, it was time. I hunched over and projectile vomited into the once clean and pristine bowl. Out came the most glorious stream of fluorescent orange hellfire of half-digested, twice-processed food. The stream of paste was familiar in taste. It was the same coming up as it was going down. I remember thinking in this bizarre moment of clarity. Despite this first expulsion of sin being the longest ejection of matter from my body, at any point in my life to that point, I somehow was not done. Barely with a gasp of air, I went again. Then again. And again. I truly do not recall how many times my body spasmed to empty itself of matter, only that the event had become so traumatic that this frame of memory was stripped from me along with the spirit of Frito-Lay itself. When I finished, and my body was free of my carnal craving for cheesy goodness, I came to look at the product of my mistake. The bowl, of which my mother intentionally selected for being the largest so we had FAS full. She had selected that bowl as she thought that with such a large size, spillage under any circumstance would be unthinkable. Yet, here it was, what felt like a legitimate full pound of half-digested Doritos. I remember the sight clearly, more than anything else from this day. I was stricken by its warmth. In awe of its uniform viscosity. Amassed by its bright fluorescent orange glow that was radiating from the light cast from the street lamp next to us. It was then I looked at my mother, who I imagine was questioning her life choices in how she managed to leave this bag of chips unattended for me to consume in secret. Struggled to understand what devil it was that once inhabited her precious baby boy. How it could mathematically be possible that I was even able to contain such volume of processed food. We simply sat there silent, awestruck by this abomination that now is haunting us with its smell. My father was due to walk out at any moment. To take this anywhere in this 2.5-seat truck would bring us all certain doom. Any form of travel with my food baby was simply not an option. Then came the only solution: it had to go. It had to go right where we were, out the door and onto the street. So carefully, with as much control as my poor frail body could muster, I braced the bowl with an iron grip with my one hand and very carefully opened the door with my other. Thankfully gravity was able to swing the door wide open for me given the angle we were parked, and thus I was free to commence Operation TIFU. As I gently titled the bowl began to drain its contents down onto the warm dark street. Thankfully, the thick substance did not splash, it was simply drizzled calmly and somehow gracefully out in a smooth pour. I let the bowl hang out the door to drain as best I could, until only streaks of my nightmare remained, clinging to the metal surface. Out of morbid curiosity I looked over to see if it was moving away towards the drain gutter and down into the sewer. With shock and horror, I saw it motionless. It was pancake thick in a near-perfect circle, and clung to the pavement like burnt cheese on a hot cast-iron pan. I said nothing further as I weakly closed the door and sat there in shame as I waited for my father. Soon my dad came out and we picked him up for the ride home. Physically and emotionally exhausted, I passed out. While still crippled in pain, my body was done and my nightmare came to a close. Or so I thought. 3 days later my mother had to pick him up again for similar reasons as to last, and I had to go with her as I was too young in her eyes to be left alone at night, particularly after my burglary that led to the worst night of my life. Nevertheless I felt fine. My head was clear and my eyes were sharp. So when we pulled down 18th Street in Oakland, I saw it. The fever dream was not over. The pancake demon was still there, exactly as I left it. Although deflated from decay, it was still unmistakably orange, even in the lamplight's midnight gaze. In all this time, it was never disturbed and it had been baking in the California sun. No animal dared to scavenge upon it, no car even risked driving through it. That hellspawn was there, exactly as I had left it. Thick, flat, and horrifyingly orange. Days passed. Weeks passed. Months passed. No one, no thing alive chose to confront it. Either the street sweepers never drove down that road, or they consciously chose to drive around it so as to not sully their massive rotating pavement sweeping brushes. In either case, it was permitted to naturally deflate over time, evaporating whatever moisture it had away in the 100°F+ temperatures. It was only a fall rain that finally carried the dried-up material that remained away, finally into the drainage gutter I had hoped it would flow into months back. The night after that rain, it finally seemed to be gone, and I felt that this mark of shame was erased from history. I was wrong. Eventuality, my dad had a shift change that permitted a pickup in the daytime. Once again, due to a variety of circumstances, I was made to join my mother to pick up my father at work. It was on this day, my memory became eternal. The pancake that had been carried away by rain was now replaced by a stain. A large dull orange circle. Because of its prolonged bake period on the hot asphalt, it had left itself a permanent mark on the road for all to see. Of all emotions I found myself experiencing, I remember feeling impressed. No. Proud. I left a mark for all the workers of Mother's Cookies and all others that drove down that California street to see that the sun had deemed my creation to be worthy of remaining a permanent fixture in this corner of the world. It remained there for years. Although my rides to pick up my dad were becoming less frequent, it always remained. I even came to look forward to seeing it when I came to pick him up, in my weird morbid sense of way. It became my reminder to treat my body with better respect, and to take my chronic condition more seriously. It was only at the end of my dad's tenure there that the stain was erased from history. Despite all prior efforts of man and weather, its color barely faded. It took the city of Oakland to strip and repave the road to have it cleared from physical history. It may be gone, but it will never be forgotten. Rip Orange Pancake. I salute you. Too long did not read. I discovered a migraine trigger by eating a pound of Doritos, resulting in the creation of an orange pancake by means of regurgitation onto a street in Oakland. I'm sitting here with a headache from a migraine wishing I could pinpoint the cause to Doritos. Also I want Doritos. I miss fiery habanero or Cool Ranch. The too long did not read. Is just beautiful. You sir have a way with words. I have never truly read about vomit and appreciated it after. While I deeply sympathize on the topic of migraines, and one of the triggers being some food, and you being so little back then, your descriptions are fucking hilarious, op. TIFU by being a sympathetic puker with a vivid imagination reading a story written by a writer who was a master of descriptive imagery. Nauseated face. Face vomiting. Orange circle. The honey mustard and onion pretzel pieces do it for me, and Funyuns. I hate it because they're both delicious. Today I fucked up by getting a boner when my girlfriend said my first name. So, context. I went to a small high school where there were several people with the same first name. Thus spawned a tradition of people calling us by our last names. When I went to undergraduate, my roommate was a friend from high school, who carried on that tradition with my new college friend group. Fast forward a few years, I'm now dating a girl from that college friend group, and she's trying to start calling me by my first name. Unfortunately, I'm so unused to her calling me by that name that it's become a significant turn-on. This has led to several events in the past couple of weeks where she said my name in completely mundane scenarios, such as introducing me to her other friends, which leads invariably to rapid urgent adjustments to my waistline. Too long did not read. My name makes me horny. Enjoy the age where you can get a boner from hearing a word rolling on the floor laughing. Best too long did not read. Line ever. Is your dad's name Pavlov? What name gives you a boner? NGL. This is like one of those Japanese animes I've heard about. They need to expand this sub to TIAFU to cover stuff like this. Today, I am fucked up.